My dear friends, every one of us has those days when life feels heavy, when the mind whispers, maybe this is as far as I can go. But let me tell you something. Those very days are your invitation to push yourself. Because the truth is, you will never know how strong you are until strength is your only choice. We all wish for comfort, we all love peace, but remember, no masterpiece was ever created in comfort. Growth begins when excuses end. Every mountain that looks impossible today once looked impossible to the climber who now stands on its peak. So I want you to imagine this. You wake up one day not wondering, what if, but smiling because you did it. You didn't stop when it got hard. You didn't quit when no one clapped. You didn't wait for the world to believe in you. You believed in yourself when the world was silent. Push yourself until the silence becomes your strength. Push yourself until the noise no longer shakes your peace. Push yourself until everything that once seemed impossible slowly begins to look like destiny. Because progress doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in your heart, keep going. And the one who listens to that whisper, practices every day, and finds calm in chaos, that person is the one who transforms the impossible into reality. We all crave comfort, don't we? We want everything in life to be easy, predictable, and smooth. But comfort, my friends, is like a warm bed on a cold morning. It feels good, but if you stay there too long, you'll miss the sunrise. Growth doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in that moment when you decide to push yourself beyond it. Think about it. Every extraordinary person you've ever admired didn't get there because life was kind. They got there because they chose not to let comfort control them. They learned to stretch beyond what was easy, to walk the extra mile when the body was tired and the heart was scared. Imagine a seed buried deep in the soil. For it to grow into a tree, it must first crack open. It must push through the darkness, through layers of resistance, through pressure. That little seed doesn't say, I'll grow only when the soil feels nice. It grows because it knows, unless it breaks, it will never bloom. That's what it means to push beyond comfort. You and I are like that seed. Life will cover us with responsibilities, struggles, doubts, and failures, but it's in those very moments that we're meant to rise. The soil that seems to bury you is actually the ground that helps you grow. There was a young man I once met who wanted to become a musician. He had dreams of performing on big stages, of inspiring people through his songs. But every time he sat down to practice, his friends called him out to party. Every time he planned to save money, to buy better equipment, his desires pulled him toward instant pleasures. One day he realized that his dreams were shrinking, not because he lacked talent, but because he had become too comfortable in mediocrity. That day, he made a decision to practice even when no one was watching, to wake up earlier than his excuses, and to play the guitar until his fingers ached. Years later, he stood on a stage with thousands of people cheering his name. When I asked him how he got there, he smiled and said, I simply got tired of being comfortable. Pushing beyond comfort doesn't mean torturing yourself. It means choosing progress over pleasure. It means saying, I want a better life, so I will do what better requires. When we stop seeking only what feels good and start embracing what makes us grow, life begins to unfold in magical ways. Think of the gym. The first day you lift weights, your muscles scream in pain. It's uncomfortable. But if you stop there, you remain weak. If you push through, those same muscles become your strength. Life works the same way. Every discomfort is an opportunity to build your spiritual and emotional muscle. So many of us wait for the right time to act. We say, when I have more money, I'll start my business. When I feel confident, I'll speak up. When I have more energy, I'll work harder. But the truth is, comfort never gives you permission. Growth is not waiting for you to feel ready, it's waiting for you to move. You don't need perfect conditions to make progress. You just need the courage to take one uncomfortable step. The first step is always the hardest because it asks you to walk through fear, through doubt, through resistance. But the moment you do, life rewards you with momentum. There's a beautiful saying, ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. You are not built for stagnation. You are built to move, to explore, to grow. If you stay anchored in your comfort zone, your life becomes smaller every day. But if you dare to sail, even when the waters are rough, you begin to see the vastness of your potential. Sometimes the storm is not there to destroy you, it's there to teach you how strong your sails really are. There will be moments when pushing yourself feels lonely, when the world seems to be moving in the opposite direction. You'll see people relaxing while you're working, people celebrating while you're still building, and your mind will whisper, why can't I just take it easy? But remember, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. Temporary discomfort is far lighter than the lifelong regret of what if. Those who rise to greatness have one thing in common. They don't escape the uncomfortable, they embrace it as their teacher. Even in spirituality, comfort can be a trap. We may say, I'll meditate when I have time, or I'll pray when I feel peaceful. But true peace comes from discipline. When you sit still every day, when you calm your mind even when thoughts shout at you, that's when you grow. The mind resists silence because it's uncomfortable. But when you push through that resistance, a deeper calm emerges, one that cannot be shaken by circumstances. That's the power of going beyond comfort. You stop depending on the world to make you feel good. You start drawing strength from within. In the end, life is not meant to be lived safely, it's meant to be lived meaningfully. Each time you push past what's easy, you shape your destiny. You may stumble, you may fall, but even in those moments, you're still ahead of the person who never tried. Progress is not always loud. Sometimes it's just you choosing to try again when giving up feels easier. So tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, am I growing or just staying comfortable? Because comfort will give you rest for a night, but growth will give you peace for a lifetime. Don't let fear of discomfort steal the story of who you're meant to become. Push yourself until the impossible becomes familiar. Push yourself until your limits expand. Push yourself until comfort no longer defines you. Because the day you do, that's the day everything begins to feel possible. Doubt is one of life's most deceptive teachers. It doesn't come wearing a warning sign. It comes softly, wrapped in logic, whispering in your ear, maybe you're not good enough. It arrives when you're about to begin something new, when the spark of possibility is at its brightest. But instead of fueling your fire, doubt tries to pour cold water over it. Yet here's the beauty of life. Doubt is not your enemy. It is a test, a divine test to see whether you listen to the noise around you or to the quiet voice within. When you learn to turn your doubt into drive, you stop being limited by what people say and start being lifted by what your purpose demands. There's a story about a young girl who wanted to become a dancer. Every time she practiced, her friends laughed. They said, "You don't have the body for it. It's not a real career." you're wasting your time. At first, their words broke her spirit, but one day, she realized that their doubt wasn't her truth. It was their fear disguised as advice. She made a silent promise to herself that she would dance until her soul spoke louder than their laughter. And she did. Each mocking word became another push to train harder. Each failure became another lesson. Years later, those same people who doubted her were the ones clapping in the front row. You see, doubt only has power when you give it your attention. When you turn it into fuel, it becomes the wind behind your wings. In our daily lives, we face small doses of doubt constantly. It might come from a boss who doesn't recognize your effort, a family member who doesn't understand your dream, or even your own reflection in the mirror questioning your worth. The most dangerous doubt, however, is not the one that comes from others. It's the one that comes from within. That inner voice that says, "What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I don't make it?" But here's a thought: what if you do? What if you succeed beyond what you can imagine? What if your effort today becomes someone else's inspiration tomorrow? The mind loves to create fear about failure, but it rarely considers the beauty of possibility. Turning doubt into drive means choosing to move even when you're unsure. It's not about pretending you're fearless. It's about walking forward with fear in your pocket, but faith in your heart. Some of the most successful people on earth began with doubt surrounding them like a storm. Edison was told he was too foolish to invent. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Each of them faced rejection, ridicule, and self-doubt. But they didn't let it define them. They let it refine them. They took every no and turned it into motivation for another try. Think about a time in your life when someone didn't believe in you. Maybe you wanted to start something new, a business, a creative idea, a change of lifestyle. But people laughed or dismissed it. How did that make you feel? It hurt, didn't it? But what if that pain wasn't there to discourage you but to strengthen your purpose? Sometimes the universe uses the disbelief of others to awaken our determination. The moment you stop seeking validation and start seeking progress, you step into a power that no one can take from you. It's also important to understand that doubt doesn't always come as criticism. Sometimes it comes disguised as comfort. It tells you, why risk it? You're fine where you are. It tells you, don't try. What if you get embarrassed? That's the kind of doubt that silently kills dreams because it sounds reasonable. But let's be honest. If you never take the risk, you'll never feel the reward. There's a difference between failing and regretting. Failure teaches, regret haunts. Every time you ignore doubt and take a step forward, even if you stumble, you are still moving closer to your true self. Let me tell you something very real. There will be days when doubt will be heavier than your courage. Days when nothing seems to work, and the voice in your mind says, you're wasting your time. On those days, pause. Breathe. Remember why you started. The reason you began will always be stronger than the excuses trying to stop you. The flower doesn't bloom in a day, and success doesn't happen overnight. Every time you push forward despite doubt, you are building inner strength. You're proving to yourself that you are capable, worthy, and chosen for something greater. There's also a spiritual side to this truth. Doubt is not something to be hated, it's something to be understood. It exists to remind you that faith is a choice. Without doubt, there would be no reason to trust. Without uncertainty, there would be no space for belief. Every time you choose to believe in yourself despite doubt, you align closer with the divine plan. Because God doesn't promise certainty, He promises strength. He doesn't remove challenges, He builds character through them. So, the next time doubt shows up, smile. Let it remind you that you're attempting something that matters. No one doubts the ordinary. People doubt the extraordinary because they cannot see what you see. Let their doubt become your energy. When they say, "You can't," let it echo in your mind as, "I must." When they say, "It's impossible," let it sound like, "It's time to begin." Life's most beautiful victories are written by those who refuse to let doubt decide their destiny. In the end, your journey is not about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you can turn uncertainty into unstoppable energy. Let every rejection, every hesitation, and every moment of fear become a stepping stone toward your highest potential. Because when you rise above doubt, you don't just change your life, you inspire others to believe in their own again. And that is the ultimate victory. Not just to succeed, but to help others see that faith, when practiced through perseverance, can transform even the deepest doubt into the purest drive. The world today is louder than it has ever been, not just with sounds, but with opinions, expectations, and endless comparisons. From the moment we wake up, we are surrounded by noise. The phone buzzing, the notifications lighting up, the constant chatter of what everyone else is doing, achieving, or becoming. And amidst all of that, it becomes so easy to lose ourselves. The mind starts to believe that we need to keep up with the noise to stay relevant, that we need to prove something to someone all the time. But my dear friends, true strength is not found in how well we respond to the noise of the world, but in how calmly we can rise above it. Mastering the noise means learning to be still while everything around you is screaming for your attention. There's a story about a man who lived near a busy marketplace. Every day, from morning until night, he heard the same sounds. The sellers shouting, the customers bargaining, the clatter of carts, the chaos of life. One day, his friend asked, "How do you manage to stay peaceful in such noise?" The man smiled and said, "I stopped trying to control the noise outside and started learning to quiet the noise inside." That's the secret. You cannot silence the world, but you can learn to silence your reaction to it. In life, there will always be noise, people's opinions about you, their judgments, their doubts. Some will criticize you for trying, others for not trying enough. Some will misunderstand your silence, while others will question your success. But the truth is, people will talk anyway. If you let every voice around you decide your direction, you'll spend your entire life walking in circles. The moment you learn to pause, breathe, and choose which voices deserve your energy, that's the moment you start mastering your life. Think about social media. It's like standing in the middle of a massive crowd where everyone is shouting at once about their success, their achievements, their happiness. And you, standing there, begin to wonder if you're falling behind. But remember, the loudest person is not always the happiest one. Sometimes the ones who make the most noise are the ones struggling the most. True peace doesn't need to announce itself, it just exists quietly. When you stop chasing the noise, you start hearing the sound of your own soul again. There's also another kind of noise, the noise of the mind. The thoughts that keep replaying your mistakes, the fears that keep whispering what could go wrong, the anxiety that keeps reminding you of what you haven't done yet. This inner noise is far louder than anything outside. It keeps us restless, comparing, and dissatisfied. But the moment you sit down, close your eyes, and breathe consciously, something magical happens. You start realizing that the noise was never in the world, it was in your own head. And when you quiet your thoughts, the world automatically becomes quieter too. Let's take a simple daily example. You're driving to work and someone cuts you off in traffic. Instantly, your mind reacts: anger, irritation, frustration. You start shouting at a person you'll never meet again. And for the next 10 minutes, that one moment steals your peace. But if you pause, breathe, and tell yourself, I won't let this noise disturb my inner calm, everything changes. The situation remains the same, but your peace remains untouched. Mastering the noise doesn't mean avoiding life. It means not letting life's little disturbances shake your spirit. Even in relationships, we face emotional noise. Misunderstandings, unspoken expectations, and assumptions create a storm of unnecessary conflict. The mind begins to overthink every word, every silence, every gesture. But wisdom lies in responding, not reacting. Sometimes, you don't need to defend yourself, prove your point, or fight back. Silence can speak louder than words when it comes from strength, not ego. When you learn to stay centered, no matter what others throw at you, you become unshakable. Spiritually too, noise is the biggest barrier between us and the divine. We pray, we meditate, but our minds wander. We keep asking why we don't feel connected. But the truth is, we're listening to everything else but the still voice within. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to feel that connection, not as a sound but as presence. The divine doesn't shout, it whispers, and only the quiet heart can hear it. That's why every spiritual path emphasizes silence, not the absence of sound, but the mastery of stillness. In a world that glorifies business, being calm can almost seem strange. People will mistake your peace for indifference. They'll say, you don't care enough because you don't react like they do. But calmness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It takes great strength to remain composed when the world expects you to break. It takes maturity to choose silence over chaos, understanding over argument, and peace over pride. Every time you respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively, you're proving that you've mastered the noise instead of letting it master you. So, my friends, the next time life feels loud, don't try to shout louder. Just turn down your inner volume. Don't fight every battle the world invites you into. Some things deserve your silence more than your energy. When you learn to protect your peace, you'll start realizing that most noise is temporary. What truly matters doesn't shout for attention. It waits quietly for you to notice it. The more you train your mind to stay still in chaos, the more powerful you become. Because while everyone else is losing themselves in the noise, you'll be the one standing firm, peaceful, focused, and free. That is the art of mastering the noise, not running away from life's sounds, but walking calmly through them, knowing that your inner peace is your greatest strength. There is a quiet beauty in silence that most people overlook. In a world obsessed with noise of achievements, of opinions, of endless validation, silence often feels uncomfortable. People fear silence because it confronts them with themselves. But those who embrace it, those who can sit in their own company and find calm in the stillness, discover something extraordinary. They meet their truest self. Embracing silence doesn't mean avoiding life. It means finding depth within it. It's in silence that clarity is born, creativity blossoms, and wisdom whispers. When we learn to befriend silence, we stop running from our thoughts and start understanding them. Think of your mind like a muddy lake. When you keep stirring it with constant activity, checking your phone, chasing distractions, overthinking, the water stays cloudy. But when you allow it to settle, when you stop disturbing it, the mud slowly sinks and the water becomes clear again. Silence does exactly that for our mind. It clears away the mental noise that keeps us restless and brings our deepest truths to the surface. Most people think clarity comes from more thinking, but it actually comes from stillness. In silence, you stop reacting and start realizing. There was once a man who visited a monk and said, "My life feels chaotic. I want peace. Teach me meditation." The monk poured tea into his cup until it overflowed. Startled, the man said, "It's spilling over." The monk smiled and said, "This is your mind, too full to receive anything new. Empty it through silence, and you'll find peace." That is the essence of embracing silence. When your mind is crowded with thoughts, there's no room for understanding. Silence empties you so wisdom can enter. In our daily lives, silence can feel almost impossible. We wake up to alarms, rush through conversations, and fill every pause with music or screens. But have you noticed how uncomfortable it feels when there's no noise around? That discomfort is a mirror. It shows how disconnected we've become from ourselves. When you sit quietly, your mind starts throwing every thought it has been hiding. Old regrets, future fears, unfinished conversations, they all rise to the surface. That's why most people avoid silence. They're afraid to face what's within. But here's the truth: silence doesn't create those feelings. It reveals them so they can finally heal. The silence that feels awkward at first becomes peaceful once you stop running from it. Even in nature, everything valuable grows in silence. The sun rises without noise, flowers bloom quietly, and trees grow slowly in peace. Only human beings believe that everything must be loud to be meaningful. But the most profound transformations happen in quiet moments. A late night reflection, a silent prayer, or a walk under the stars when you feel connected to something far greater than yourself. When you practice silence daily, you begin to see life with a softer gaze. You stop reacting to every situation and start responding with wisdom. Silence also has the power to transform relationships. In arguments, people rush to be heard, not to understand. But when one person chooses silence instead of shouting, the energy shifts. Silence gives space for emotions to cool and understanding to grow. It teaches patience, empathy, and humility, qualities that no amount of talking can teach. Sometimes you don't need to explain yourself to be understood. Your silence, when it comes from love and clarity, speaks louder than any defense. It says, "I value peace more than my ego." There's also the spiritual side of silence, the silence that connects us to the divine. When you sit quietly in prayer or meditation, you begin to feel that life isn't something happening to you, it's something happening through you. In silence, you don't just think about God, you begin to feel God's presence. The noise of the world may tell you you're not enough, that you need more, do more, become more. But silence reminds you that you already are everything you're meant to be. That awareness brings peace that no success can give. Even the great thinkers, poets, and visionaries understood this truth. They didn't find inspiration in the chaos of noise, they found it in the quiet of solitude. That's why they could see what others couldn't. When your mind is still, it becomes a mirror that reflects truth clearly. When it's noisy, it distorts reality. So if you ever feel lost, don't rush to do more. Pause, sit, and listen. Answers rarely come through overthinking, they come through quiet understanding. Let me share a small daily example. Imagine you're facing a problem at work or home. Your first instinct might be to discuss it with everyone, to seek advice, to complain, to analyze. But sometimes, the best thing you can do is stay silent for a while. Sit alone, breathe, and observe what's happening inside you. Silence gives your heart the time to speak. Often, it will guide you toward an answer your mind couldn't see in the noise. The solution comes not because the problem changed, but because you did. When you embrace silence, you become more powerful. Not because you say less, but because what you say after silence carries depth. Your words start to come from awareness, not reaction. You begin to hear more, not just what people say, but what they mean. You start noticing details you used to overlook, and gratitude begins to grow naturally. Silence doesn't make you distant from the world, it brings you closer to it in the most profound way. So, my friends, if you truly wish to live deeply, make silence your companion. Spend a few minutes every day doing nothing. No phone, no noise, just you and your breath. At first, it will feel empty, then it will feel peaceful, and soon it will feel like home. The more you sit in silence, the more you realize that peace was never something to be found. It was always within you, waiting patiently beneath the noise. And when you live from that silence, you carry a calmness that nothing in the world can disturb. You become like a still lake, reflecting everything yet disturbed by nothing. That is the power and beauty of embracing silence. It teaches you that the loudest strength in life often speaks in whispers. There is something profoundly beautiful about practice. It is the unseen rhythm behind every success, the quiet repetition that builds greatness without applause. We often look at people who are extraordinary and think they were born gifted, that their success came from talent or luck. But if you look closer, you'll see that their real magic lies in one simple truth. They practiced. They practiced when it wasn't fun, when no one believed in them, when the world wasn't watching. They practiced not for recognition, but for mastery. Because practice, when done with purpose, becomes the bridge between who you are and who you can become. In a world addicted to instant results, practice can feel slow, even boring. We want transformation without repetition, growth without patience, success without sweat. But life doesn't work that way. Anything meaningful takes time. A sculptor doesn't create a masterpiece in a single stroke. It's the thousands of careful, deliberate chisels that bring the beauty to life. Similarly, our character, our peace, our strength, they are sculpted through daily practice. You can't just wish to be calm, kind, or wise. You have to practice being those things every single day until they become your nature. Think about learning an instrument. The first few days are always messy. The notes sound off, the rhythm feels wrong, and your fingers ache. If you keep practicing, something changes. The same awkward movements that once felt impossible start flowing naturally. You no longer play from memory, you play from your heart. That's what practice does. It turns struggle into skill and hesitation into harmony. Life is no different. Every challenge, every small step of discipline is a practice in becoming who you're meant to be. There was once a young man who wanted to run a marathon, but he was out of shape. On his first day, he could barely run a few hundred meters. He felt embarrassed and thought of quitting. But instead, he made a small promise. I will just show up every day. Some days he ran, some days he walked, but he never missed a day. Months passed, and one morning, without even realizing it, he ran 10 kilometers without stopping. When people asked how he did it, he smiled and said, I just practiced showing up. That's the secret. Greatness doesn't come from doing something once, it comes from doing something consistently. Practice isn't just about physical effort, it's also about training the mind and spirit. Every time you choose patience over anger, you're practicing peace. Every time you forgive, instead of holding a grudge, you're practicing compassion. Every time you pause to breathe in the middle of chaos, you're practicing presence. These small moments might seem insignificant, but they are the building blocks of a powerful, centered life. Practice doesn't change the world around you instantly, but it changes the way you move through it, and that changes everything. Sometimes people say, "I tried, but it didn't work." What they really mean is, "I tried once or twice." The truth is, nothing grows overnight. A seed doesn't bloom the day it's planted. It takes weeks of care, sunlight, and patience before it even breaks the soil. Similarly, when you practice anything, a skill, a habit, a mindset, results may not appear immediately. That's where faith comes in. You keep practicing not because you already see results, but because you believe in what those small efforts will eventually create. Every day you practice is a deposit into your future. The results come quietly, then all at once. Even spiritually, practice is what connects us with the divine. You don't find inner peace by meditating once, you find it by sitting in silence daily, even when your mind feels restless. You don't become wise by reading a single verse. You become wise by reflecting on it, living it, and embodying it through practice. The great saints, philosophers, and thinkers didn't become enlightened in a day. They practiced awareness, discipline, and devotion for years, and that is what made their wisdom timeless. In everyday life, practice can be as simple as gratitude. At first, you might have to remind yourself to be thankful, to notice small blessings like a morning breeze or a smile from a stranger. But as you practice gratitude, it becomes second nature. You stop focusing on what's missing and start seeing what's already beautiful. That's the quiet transformation that practice brings. It reshapes your perspective before it reshapes your life. Let's be honest, practice isn't glamorous. It's repetitive, quiet, and often invisible. No one claps when you wake up early to work on yourself. No one cheers when you resist negativity or choose discipline over distraction. But those are the moments that define you. Every small act of practice is a seed planted in the soil of your potential. The world might not notice, but the universe does. It sees your effort, your sincerity, your persistence, and in time, it rewards you in ways far greater than applause. There will be days when you don't feel like practicing, when your energy is low, your mind is tired, and progress seems far away. On those days, remember this: showing up is also practice. Even when you do less than you hoped, your consistency matters. What you repeat, you become. The effort may be small, but the discipline it builds is priceless. Eventually, you look back and realize that all those silent days of effort were leading you somewhere beautiful. So, my friends, keep practicing, not just for the goal, but for the growth. Every day you practice, you become a little more of the person you're meant to be. The body strengthens, the mind sharpens, the soul deepens. Practice with love, with patience, with purpose. Don't chase perfection, chase progress. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize that what once felt difficult now feels natural, that what once seemed far away is now within reach. That's the quiet miracle of practice. It transforms not just what you do, but who you are. And when you live with that spirit, life itself becomes your greatest practice, a daily opportunity to grow, to serve, and to shine. We live in a world that glorifies big achievements, where people applaud the loud victories and overlook the quiet progress that happens behind the scenes. But progress, my friends, doesn't always come wrapped in grand moments. It often comes disguised as small, almost invisible steps that nobody notices. The journey of transformation doesn't always feel like fireworks. It feels like slow sunrise, gentle and steady. The most powerful progress in life is not about giant leaps, but about consistent steps, even when no one is watching. When we measure ourselves only by perfection, we crush our motivation before it even has a chance to grow. But when we honor progress, no matter how small, we water the roots of greatness. Think about a young man who decides to start running every morning to improve his health. On the first day, he barely makes it halfway down the street before his legs start burning.